Many years ago, I got one of these when visiting our friends in Malawi, where we're doing a lot of work that maybe I'll talk about this morning. I keep this in my office as a reminder of our work in that country. Evidence of the very first hose, something like this, exists on cave paintings that date back to the 5th millennia BC. Paintings on these cave walls showed a tool that resembled a long fork with a stick that early farmers would use to hoe and dig weeds and create furrows and chop plants. Hoes represent food and they represent sustenance. A lost or a broken hoe, this little piece of technology you hold in your hands, could mean starvation and put an entire village at risk. In Malawi, we would see men and women working together in their fields with hoes like this. I was stunned the first time I went there during the planting season, driving through the countryside and seeing from horizon to horizon furrows, 18-inch deep furrows, mounding in the center, weaving along to the horizon where they plant seeds along the top of those. All of that created by this technology. Men and women, often women with babies on their backs, preparing the soil to create this year's crop. This tool, while it might not look like it, represents power. In the language of economics, this is a force multiplier, meaning that a person with this technology can accomplish as much and feed as many people as 5 or 10 or 20 people who don't have one of these. Force multiplication. This has the capacity to lift and empower people to improve their lives. This is exactly what we're trying to do with the Force for Good efforts around the world. Multiply our efforts through these mechanisms that we'll talk about. The New Skin Force for Good Foundation is a force multiplier, amplifying and expanding the good that each of us can do in the world. The Melinda Gates book, The Power to Lift, highlights many of the women that Melinda, has met along her way through the years of travel and humanitarian work and extensive research. Her book discusses the need for love as a force of change. She said this: love is the most powerful and underused force for change in the world. For me, she said, love is the effort to help others to flourish, and it often begins with lifting a person's self-image. It all starts with love. Our co-founder, Sandy Tillotson, who's here with us today. Frankly, I feel a little silly standing up here with you sitting down there. Sandy Tillotson. We'll hear from her some more all the time. But she talks about being motivated by love a lot. I hope you followed her on her account. I love it to hear her talk about how we can make a difference in this world with a single person when we show love. The Beatles were right. All you need is love to lift and to help and to make a positive change. Well, actually, love isn't all you need. You also need labor, which is the kind of work that you do. Being a global force for good is central to our efforts. We've always wanted it this way. This was the plan of this company, the business plan from the very beginning. Our unique sales channel, combined with our premium products, what was that? Our unique products. I'm not going to win any points with Dr. Joe with that. Come on. Theonanine gives us our global sales force of trusted affiliates, sets us apart in the beauty and wellness space, enabling Nu Skin to effectively integrate our purpose into everything that we do. At Nu Skin, we focus on improving children's health and wellness through global initiatives within our Force for Good efforts. We are actively engaged in improving each of the communities where we do business through local relationships and projects. We've increased our transparency and dedication to sustainability, improving our products and our packaging and our carbon footprint and materials reduction to make our planet a better place. And we are always both incredibly proud and overwhelmingly humbled by our Nourish the Children program, I'll talk more about all the good you've done with that in a few minutes. So let's take a tour around the world and recap some of the impact that our charitable partners have helped us to create through our Force for Good efforts. Much like this technology that I'm holding here, our charitable partners around the globe are force multipliers who empower us together to help more children and more families to do more and be more. Meet Leo Hayu. After a 20-hour surgery, this little boy's broken heart was recovered, thanks to the Greater Children's Heart Fund. After 9 years of treatment in Beijing, he is excited to be back in his home in the Hebei province. The Greater China Children's Heart Fund has empowered Leo to dream big. He is one of more than 10,000 children through this amazing program. For just a point of reference, there are about 2,500 of you here in this room. So imagine this room full of him, multiplied by, what is that, 6? Let's stop in Thailand for a moment and meet Natanicha Phung Phung, who thankfully also uses the name of August. This cute little 2-year-old, August, has been fighting congenital heart disease all of her life. But thanks to the Southeast Asia Children's Heart Fund, August received life-saving surgery and it has a healthier life to look forward to. Thank you. Thanks to you, the Nu Skin family, we are empowering August to grow up with a full life of hope. She is one of more than 14,200 children helped by the Southeast Asia Children's Heart Fund through you and your efforts. In Malawi, the School of Agriculture for Family Independence, SAFI as we call it, helps people like Alex and Patricia Jakanika, who turn their lives around at Kamba Village. For their SAFI education, they were able to, or from their SAFI education, they were able to diversify their farming efforts and manage livestock to help their family gain food security. Their self-reliance has grown, and they've become a shining example to their neighbors of how to transform from barely feeding themselves to truly being breadwinners. They use a hoe just like this one to empower their future. Alex and Patricia represent just 2 of the more than 11,000 people that we've been able to help through your efforts in SAFI. Now imagine what a different life their children, thank you, what a different life, we should apply that. What a great life that we're giving to them and to their children. Those changes are going to go on and on as their children learn from the example of their parents. Let's go to Waialefu, Fiji. The remote coastal village of Waialefu is on the Netuwa Peninsula, one of the most ecologically important areas in Fiji. For most of its existence, the coastal village of Waialefu was cut off from the rest of Fiji and from the rest of the world, and from modern amenities. There was no electricity in this region until 1999. They were living in the Bronze Age, basically. There were no roads to the village until 2004, and even then you needed a 3-ton truck to drive it. And bus service to the closest town 50 miles away arrived in 2010, the first time that many of these people ever saw anything outside of their own villages. Isolation, however, has not protected the village or the forest surrounding it from the effects of climate change. Erosion caused by the rising sea has damaged the forest and forced nearly 400 people to move to higher ground. Increasingly violent cyclones have destroyed houses. The coral reef offshore is nearly dead, probably because of pollution, storm damage, and seawater warming, and acidification, but also because of overuse, as the villages relied heavily on the ocean resources. But the people of Waialefu village, many of whom are subsistence farmers who use something like this, formally protect their land want to formally protect the land by creating a large forest reserve. They want to give their damaged reef a chance to recover by creating an expansive marine protected area. However, they also care about their children, and they desperately need a place for their kindergarten. Right now, there are 32 5-year-olds crammed into one little makeshift room. Those of you in education know that that is a nightmare. Ecology has agreed to build a village hall that will act as a kindergarten room, but also as a community center and a shelter from storms. In return, the village has agreed to protect 2,200 acres of rainforest and almost 1,000 acres of marine acres out on the reef in exchange. This is stretches of reef that go on for miles along the coast of this area. I love how we're empowering communities to protect their environments, but also help build a better future for their children. There are many children and causes who need our help, and you're making a significant and lasting impact on those children all around the world. Let's not forget about our Nourish the Children efforts, something that we all should take great pride in. From Malawi to mainland China to Argentina to Colombia to Mexico and the Philippines and beyond, you're making a difference in the fight against malnutrition through our for-profit Nourish the Children initiative. To date, you have provided more than 750 million meals to hungry children. We applaud that. Every one of those meals has come through donations that you have chosen to make in order to help make this world a better place. In 2022, on average, brand affiliates in the Americas region are donating about 661,000 meals every month. Every morning, including this morning, you provided over 120,000 children hot meals for breakfast, meals that they would otherwise not have had. In 2020 alone, the Americas brand affiliates donated more than 8 million meals, 8.3 million meals. So thank you for that, and please applaud each other for that tremendous effort. It has been you in this building, along with New Skin leaders all over the world, who have heard the call for help and then responded, because that's who you are. But perhaps some of you are unaware of how our Vitameal efforts began. So I love this story, I'd love to tell you. In 2002, there was a massive famine occurring in the country of Malawi, a mostly landlocked country in southeastern Africa, one of the least developed, perhaps the poorest country in the world. During this famine, there were about 15 million people living in Malawi, and the estimates were that 2 million of those 15 million were AIDS orphans, mother and father having died from AIDS. The estimate showed that during this drought that was going on, perhaps 3 out of every 10 children would die, and were dying before they reached the age of 5. They were projecting that 5 million people would die in this famine. This is apocalyptic. We heard about this, and we started, thank you, talking about this. I can do this. Oh, I can do this. We started talking about this, and you decided that you weren't going to just do nothing, that we could do something together to help avert this tragedy. My goodness, can I take a deep breath here? So together, we started allocating Vitameal, which is a nutrient-dense porridge food that we manufacture, allocating it to Malawi through one of our charity partners there. It was through this effort that we learned about Napoleon Zombe, who was a remarkable businessman in Malawi. Grew up barefoot and uneducated in a little village out in the hinterlands of Malawi, and just out of sheer grit and native genius became a millionaire before he was 30 years old, and then spent all of that money trying to save his people. as he imported food and distributed it around his country. Napoleon knew that if he was ever going to help his country to attain self-reliance, that something was going to have to change. So together we worked with Napoleon and worked on a lasting and sustainable solution to fight malnutrition in Malawi, and we've been there ever since. Many relief efforts provide support on a one-time basis. Driving through the countryside of Malawi, as I hope that all of you at some point in time will get to do, you look to the right and to the left and you'll pass dozens and dozens of derelict compounds, brick structures and walled facilities that were built by well-meaning NGOs who came and soon died of donor fatigue, and they moved on to something else, leaving behind all of their good intentions. But now, this many years later, new skin remains. Our Nourish the Children initiative has provided a framework to maintain a consistent level of food on a sustainable basis for 17 years in counting. We donate Vitameal to schools who then cook and serve those meals to children who are attending school, providing further incentive for these young minds and bodies to grow both healthy and strong, but also educated. These efforts in Malawi continue to address the great need for help and relief that still exists today. Our efforts to help make a difference are making a dent, but these problems persist, and they're not going to go away anytime soon, and neither are we. Now this is a for-profit initiative, isn't it? This is different than charities that go along. Charities have taken this so far and have accomplished so much good, but there is still so much need in the world that this is an act of entrepreneurial creativity that's allowing us to address this problem in a different way. So this for-profit initiative, Nourish the Children, facilitates consistent food donations by offering an incentive to buy and donate and promote Vitameal. And so many of you have partnered with us to provide this critical humanitarian need on an ongoing basis. So let me tell you some of what you've done. We have 4 Vitameal plants around the world. They're in Malawi. They're also in Argentina. Here in the U.S., where we do disaster relief efforts, and in mainland China. Approximately 120,000 bags of Vitameal, each containing either 10 or 30 child-sized meals, is produced and distributed every month from these facilities. Now let's talk about the individual impact. This young man, Anderson Sakiti, was a baby who was found alongside of a road in Malawi to die 15 years ago. Anderson's mother had died of AIDS. His father was unable to provide for him. His 12-year-old sister dropped out of school to care for him, but ultimately there was just not enough food. And so he was left. But he was found, and he was delivered to the Tenderi orphanage, an orphanage that you support just outside of Lilongwe. But he was in such dire conditions that nobody believed he would survive the night. But he did. He fought. And the orphanage staff brought this little boy back to life. They had nothing to feed him except Vitameal, delivered to him in a little eyedropper of Vitameal at a time. And he woke up the next morning and the next morning, and he began to grow, and his eyes took on new light. His future quickly became brighter. His new orphanage mothers and sisters will tell you that it was a gift of Vitameal from one of you that saved that little boy's life. At age 15, Anderson is thriving. He's attending school, he's earning good grades, he is smart, and he is strong. At the orphanage where he lives, he's still sustained by Vitameal every day, including this day. Anderson is one of the first children we helped in Malawi. when we go over, we try to go to Malawi every year to make sure that we're keeping our promises and see what we can do to be more effective and more efficient. And every year we go, we look forward to seeing Anderson and seeing how he's growing and becoming a young man. I'm impressed with his desire to work and to give back, and he continues to see a bright future. Now, I don't know what Anderson's future holds, but we know this for sure. You gave him a future. You changed his world. People often ask us if we envisioned what we envisioned when we started this company. They talked to Sandy and I and others and said, well, you guys have been around for a long time and the company's become kind of big and successful. Did you see this from the beginning as entrepreneurs? When Blake and Sandy, my college friends, approached me about building a cosmetic direct selling company, I could quickly see how this could be a great way to make a living, how the business model could explode into something large. But what I could not have imagined was that the day would come when we would create a foundation that would provide funds to hundreds of thousands of children, or that we would grow the for-profit Nourish the Children initiative that would build food factories in places like Malawi and Argentina, and would create jobs and would provide infrastructure to provide millions of meals where there was no food. I could have envisioned a lot, but I never dreamed that I would come to know people like you. Years ago, I got the assignment to go to New York City to a banquet at the Marriott Marquis there on Broadway. We're in one of those huge banquet rooms where thousands of people were gathered for the Stevie Awards. And these thousands of people were there representing hundreds of the biggest and best companies in the world, name brands that you know all of. And I was there representing us. And ultimately, as they went down the list of recognitions, they declared you, applauded you as the greatest example of corporate responsibility in the world. And that's the goal. Well, so I was supposed to get up and accept this award and give a speech, and as I thought about it, I tried to say that many people see business today as a tawdry thing, not worthy of our best efforts. But when a business starts to get it right, using business disciplines and innovations to meet real-world demands, then they can find wealth. But then they can go a step further. If they choose to, they can aggregate, not aggravate, we don't want to aggravate anybody. They can aggregate the goodwill of the people of their organizations to make a real profound difference in the world. They can take their corporate competency into battles that mankind is otherwise losing. The fact that there are millions of children dying of malnutrition in a world with such abundance is a shocking testimony that traditional approaches aren't working. This failure is a blight on the conscience of mankind. That business people of goodwill can do much to heal. And if every business in this world was doing as much as you are, we might just solve these problems. There would be a lot less of suffering in this world. There would be a lot more hope in this world, and a lot more promise. So whether it be a hoe, or a heart surgery, a hot, nutritious meal, or farming skills, we join together to lift people. Together, we are a force for good. Together, we at News King give others the lift that they need to improve their lives. And if at the end of the day we haven't lifted somebody else, then we've missed a chance to put purpose into that day. We empower each market to find the right charity relationships that can make an impact, like Seacology, like the Children's Heart Funds, and the School of Agriculture for Family Independence. Well, now let's take one more spin on this globe. Justin Kiesel, will you join me on the stage for this? Ladies. ladies and gentlemen, just a piece of...
Awesome stuff. Awesome. Guys, I mean, here's the heartbeat right here. Doesn't it feel good to be a part of New Skin? Thank you, Steve, Sandy.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming out to help us talk about this next initiative. This is a project that really gets me excited.
Well, gosh, there's a lot to be excited about, isn't there?
There really is.
Well, but before we get to that, I just want to thank you, Sandy, Blake. This Force for Good culture that we created, that you created, is something that we're proud to continue on. And today we get a chance to talk a little bit more about how do we continue together to carry on that legacy. So thank you so much.
We're looking forward to it happening. I understand you're going to bring a surgeon out here in a minute.
You are going to hear from a surgeon.
I took some comfort in that, carrying this thing around. I've been right on the edge of a disaster all day long.
Well, we're in good hands, but thanks for everything you've done, for the beautiful message. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Lund, one more time, a big hand.
Thank you, everybody.